Here, look. The truth is, when God told Moses to write 13 Torah scrolls, there wasn't a book of Genesis in there. When the event every year, there was an event called Hakel, that the book of the law was read in front of the people. There wasn't a book of Genesis there. And these are things we have to deal with. If you're discussing religion with atheists and inquisitive college kids, this is going to come up, right? Like if you're going to present that, no, everything was given on Mount Sinai, including the book of Genesis. And I've heard rabbis say this, that they were walking through the desert knowing what was going to happen because they had the whole Torah with them. You think that sounds stupid? But this is how they teach it. That if the whole Torah was given on Mount Sinai, then the book of Deuteronomy is there, the book of Numbers. Come on, guys. Let's not get stuck on first stage thinking.
So you believe in the common, I forget what the technical term is, JYPS, JYP?
No, I don't believe in the documentary hypothesis, I think it's called. I believe that the Torah was transmitted all the way from Exodus chapter 22 to the end of Deuteronomy. Even though the Deuteronomy is understood as a repetition of the law, there's laws that appear in Deuteronomy that don't appear in other parts of the Torah. It's a transmission. On Mount Sinai, we only received the 10 statements. Moses was receiving Torah all through the wilderness. I know people say it over and over, and it sounds like a broken record. The whole Torah was given on Mount Sinai. The whole Torah was not given on Mount Sinai. I mean, doesn't it make any sense? The whole Torah. So this is why the whole notion of Nasiv and Ishmael was so important, that they said that we will do and then we will listen. That before they knew the Torah, they accepted it. So you're telling me if the whole Torah was given on Mount Sinai, then they knew the Torah before they accepted it. So no, they accepted the Torah before knowing it. The book of the law that was read wasn't a book that included narrative. It's not going to include the birth of Moses and this and that. This is important for sure, but this is not Torah. Torah means instructions. The book of the law deals with law. It's not going to be, and Jacob married his wife, and these are the generations. No, they're not. That's not the law. Colloquially, it means Torah nowadays. Many people call the whole Tanakh Torah, which is wrong, by the way. We have to break things down, and this is the only way we're going to grow. This is why this is like martial arts. I'm telling you, don't get stuck on one style and then keep on getting punched in the same location because your traditional style never taught you to block in that area. No, this is mixed. This is MMA. You have to mix it up. You have to kind of take a little of this, take a little of that to make it make sense, because the people we're going up against, inquisitive college kids who have great arguments for atheism and humanism and this and that, all this old style Judaism is not going to work. So you have to present it in a way that seems purposeful, it seems reasonable, it seems ethical, because they want ethics. These kids, they want ethics. They're not bad kids, but what alternative do they have? You know, like the Chabadnik rabbi who's extreme on everything mystical, or reform. No, we have to give them something they could work with. You know, the Rambam understood this like this. That's why the Rambam is a great philosopher. The greatest philosopher in Jewish life. Most people don't teach like the Rambam teaches. I've never heard a rabbi teach what I just taught you about Genesis chapter 3 being a prophecy of Mount Sinai. Like, can you blame the Christians for saying, oh, well, this is talking about the virgin birth? Because no one's giving them a better interpretation. But you know how many times I've heard that it was a good thing that Jacob took the birthright from his brother and lied to his father? And this is almost like an allowance for Jews to lie to Gentiles. Now, there's many commentators who say, no, that what he did was wrong. And the Chama Leibowitz is a famous one, who says there's people only want to be told what to believe. This is why it's better to read it on your own instead of having someone teach it to you, because then you decide what's important instead of the person telling you what's important. But anyways,
I just want to clarify. It wasn't technically Jacob who lied. It was his mother who came up with the plot to scheme the brother.
Jacob lied to his father and said that he was Esav.
Well, it wasn't his mother that told him to dress up like your brother and go in and tell your father that.
Yeah, but they're both liable for this. Trust me, there's always an evil woman behind every scheme. Mulan, a woman, treacherous snake. You see Mulan?
Hey, I like Mulan.
No, I like Mulan.
Well, Rabbi, I feel like what you're saying is more possibly truth than anything about what was actually given on Sinai. But I see like the commandments that are in Genesis, and this commandments not to kill, but for your own life blood I will require a reckoning. I feel like they're hidden in there more mystically, and almost to the point where if the only book somebody had was Bereshit, and they lived by those laws of spreading the seed of Yisrael, ruling over the planet with God's attributes, not murdering, and not lying, speaking all. There definitely are the laws there. I can totally agree why.
So there's no lying in there, by
considered.
the way. There's no lying, but like be fruitful, multiply is a command given to Adam, to all of humanity, to be fruitful, multiply. He who sheds the blood of man, by man his blood shall be shed. Yeah, that tells you not to murder. Okay, but I think that you need a little more than just Genesis. Okay, maybe the 10 Commandments. That people say that the 10 Commandments are really almost 10 categories that encompasses all the Torah. Whoever says that you can't understand the Torah, the written Torah, without the oral law is a dummy. That's not true. Okay, that you may not be able to act out or build a consensus on how we keep ceremonial law. Yeah, okay, I understand. There has to be a consensus on how you keep Shabbat because it's not clear. What's a malacha? There had to be a consensus on it. Okay, but in terms of ethics, love your neighbor as yourself, the whole notion of burning evil from amongst your midst, being holy as I'm holy, all these things we don't need commentaries on. You could understand the written Torah without the oral Torah, but you won't be able to stand the ceremonial part in a unified manner. Like a whole nation is supposed to run by these laws. There's a death penalty attached to Shabbat. There better be some consensus on how it's understood by everybody. So this is why you need an oral law. But the Torah could be understood without the oral law, at least from an ethical perspective. I'm sure you guys heard it, that you can't understand the written law without the oral law. That's like, I mean, it just speaks bad about your written law. It's like God gave you an incomplete thing that you can't understand unless a rabbi translates it for you. Come on, man. Yeah.
I was going to ask you about that, actually, about what you felt about having a Torah that didn't include commentary.
I'm all for it.
You said you're all for it?
I'm all for it. I tell people don't study the Torah with a commentary.
That was the whole purpose of the show. Like I said earlier, like Wade wanted to do a show where we read the Genesis, the whole Torah straight through, no commentary. We read it the way it is and try to figure it out. And I like that. I like that approach.
People to sort of shut down my idea, because I've said this many times, will be like, oh, well, how are you supposed to know how to keep Shabbat or Yom Kippur? First of all, like no one knows or learns how to keep Shabbat or Yom Kippur by commentaries, okay? Because the commentaries don't tell you how. The halakha tells you how, but the halakha is not the commentary. By the simple fact that there are many different commentaries that bounce from every part of the wall shows that there's no monolithic understanding on these things that are hard to understand. Things that aren't ambiguous, you really don't need a commentary on it. On statements that are ambiguous, your guess is as good as theirs. We don't learn how to act out Torah law with commentaries. We learn how to act out Torah law with the Mishnah, with the Talmud. These aren't commentaries. This is the halacha. This is supposedly what the rabbis on the Sanhedrin decided that this had to be like this. But this isn't in Rashi. It's in Rashi in the Talmud. It's not in Rashi in his parish of the Chumash. They say these things to newcomers in Judaism and they just stay quiet, but I wish I was in the room because I'll ask them this. I mean, since when does Rashi tell you how to keep Shabbat? Halakha is different than what Meforshim teach. The Meforshim are just commentators. They're just commentating. And Rashi, 9 out of 10 times, brings you the Medrash. The Medrash on everything that has nothing to do with halakha. If you want a plain philosophical understanding of the text and what a word may mean, this and that, you're better off going by the Ibn Ezra or Rashi's grandson, the Rashbam, who did a commentary on the Torah from a literal perspective and not from a midrashic perspective. But people think they're new to Judaism. They think there's only Rashi. Not true. Yeah, go ahead.
So what? How did that become popular? Commentary, like why is that a main thing about Judaism? I mean, you be honest. One thing that is unique to Judaism is that we study commentary of rabbis. Like, why is that even a thing? Why don't we just go to halacha and that's it? Why is there this area where people study another rabbi's opinion? Why is that even popular to begin with?
So I think this is a new thing. It's virtually impossible nowadays to find a Chumash that doesn't have Rashi in it. Now, Rashi is an Ashkenazi commentator. Clearly, in the time of the Rambam, there was no Rashi. Even in the Sephardi Chumashim, Rashi is in there. And I think that's a way to control the populace. It's because they don't want you getting weird ideas in your mind. But weird ideas really wasn't an issue with rabbis in the Talmud. Not that much. So that's a way to keep everyone thinking the same. Now, Rashi lived in the 1100s. But you're telling me Rashi had the same grasp of what this meant than the rabbis in the Talmud who lived 800, 900 years before him? Of course not. So why is everyone stuck on Rashi? It's because there's a huge dumbification of Judaism going on. There's a lot of demagoguery. Like if you try to study the Chumash without Rashi, they're like, oh, what do you mean? You think you know more than Rashi? Well, Rashi is oral law. Rashi, it's all demagoguery. They're trying to appeal to the masses who don't know crap. And they're like, oh, Rashi's awesome. Rashi, come on, guys. Rashi didn't have Rashi, okay? The Rambam didn't have the Rambam. All they had was the Mishnah. All they had was the Talmud. If every one of you guys who is able to grasp Hebrew well, because that's one thing that commentaries are good for, to tell you what a Hebrew word means. A lot of these Hebrew words, we don't know what they mean, especially when they're describing animal skins. We don't know what these animals are. Like Rashi may say that this word means that animal, and the Ibn Ezra will say this means another animal, because we don't know. So it's good to get different opinions of what certain words in Hebrew mean. But besides that, you guys could write your own commentary, and it'll be just as meaningful and just as valid as their opinion. Why should your opinion be any less important than Rashi's opinion? Oh, but it's Rashi. Come on, guys. Let's stop worshiping rabbis, okay? That Rashi didn't even have smicha. They didn't have smicha back then. He didn't sit on the Sanhedrin. His opinion is just as valid as my opinion. Now, these people should be valued with what they know and what they could bring to the table, not just because of the title they had and when they lived, okay? And I have no problem assuming that someone nowadays could know 10 times more than Rashi knew. I mean, back then, they didn't even have printed books. People went to the synagogues. They didn't have Siddurim. The whole thing of a siddur is a luxury item. People knew the prayers in their head, which is why prayer was very short. Now, prayer could be 5 hours because since the printing press, they basically took every commentary, every suggestion, and put it in one book. This is why Rosh Hashanah takes 5 hours, when according to just the Rambam's plain understanding of Rosh Hashanah, it takes 45 minutes. You're telling me nowadays that there's millions of hours of Torah classes online, someone can know more than Rashi? Why? I don't get it. You know why? It's because there's a notion called Yeridat Hadorot. Yeridat Hadorot means the decline of the generations. And it's a Kabbalistic concept that, I don't know if it's so Kabbalistic, like it's a mystical concept of Judaism that teaches that by definition, anyone who lived before you and was in some way closer to Mount Sinai is on a higher spiritual level than you are. Now, I have a whole video on this notion disproving it from the Talmud itself, that the rabbis in the Talmud did not believe this. This is a concept that was created in the Middle Ages, which is why we worship rabbis who came before, when rabbis nowadays, anyone who walks around with an MP3 player and has Torah at his fingertips day and night, sources, not just repeating things by memory, right, could know more. Like a Rav Moshe Feinstein could know a lot more than a Rashba, than a Rav Yosef Karo. Why not? We have to ask this question, why not? And I'm equipped to give an answer, which is why I love discussing these things with people, because people don't know. They'll be like, oh, well, my rabbi believes it. Do you think you know more than my rabbi? It's so silly. Anyways, that's it. I'm going to make all you guys heretics tonight.
I love having the discussion. I'll keep repeating that. I love hearing, what you have to say, Rav.